Hey, Christview. It's week 2 of being stuck at home and kind of giving a little devotion on Sunday mornings through video because we can't meet together. So it's starting to get a little frustrating that way, I'm sure. And everyone's getting a little cabin fever being stuck inside and all for the last probably 10 days and stuff like that. So, anyways, just kind of give you some devotional thoughts this morning, just kind of keep us focused as always and keep us grounded in the midst of all the chaos and different things going on like that. So, I just thought I'd take a few minutes this morning to kind of give you a little devotion, something to think on maybe for the next couple days and just get your mindset right. So, anyways, today I just want to talk to you about a story from Jesus' life, and you find it in the book of Matthew, and it's a famous one. It's where Jesus walks on water. And before I dig into it, I just kind of want to give you a little information about the stories we do find in the Bible. Is Jesus does a couple different things that we get recorded in the four Gospels. One of them is he teaches. So we get his teachings and his direct teachings where he's trying to tell us spiritual things and spiritual truths and how to view the world and how to look at things. The other side of it is we just get to see what he does. So we kind of get a glimpse from someone standing on the outside, looking at him and observing him and going, that's what he did. And those instances are recorded in the Bible. They're just not to be recorded as that's just an instance and look what he did there. There's always a spiritual reason. Those were also put in the scriptures, why those were recorded and why God wanted us to know about that one particular event. And so when we get into Jesus walking on water, it's kind of a cool story of Jesus walks in the water, holy cow, and Peter jumps out and walks on water. Wow, that's amazing. But at the end of the day, we're not just supposed to sit back and go, wow, that's an amazing story. We're supposed to look at that, and there are spiritual teachings in there. There are spiritual things that we can learn, and that's why God wanted that recorded for us, for all generations to watch or to read and be aware of, because it teaches us something more than just the story. It teaches us more than just what Jesus did in that moment. It also teaches us about the world that we live in, how we as Christians are to respond to it, and some spiritual truths to it. So that's what I want to share with you today. So I'm just going to be reading from Matthew chapter 14. And here's how it starts. It says this in verse 22. It says, immediately after this, and when it says immediately after this, right before this, Jesus actually feeds the 5,000. And after feeding the 5,000, it kind of seems that the people there were stunned by that. They see this incredible miracle, and people wanted to almost name him king at that point and kind of establish an earthly kingdom. They wanted to let him rule. They wanted to put him in charge. And Jesus sees that and realizes that's not what his purpose here is. And it says, so immediately after that, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. So he sees the people wanting him to be king, realizes that's not his purpose. He's not here to establish an earthly kingdom and make everything right here for everybody. So he says, disciples, you need to get out of here. And it might have been they were falling into that same craze as well. And he's like, get on the boat, go across the lake. I'll meet up with you later. And then it says he dismisses the people. So prior to that, the people wouldn't leave. And that's why he feeds the 5,000. They wouldn't leave, and then they're stuck without food. So whatever he says to them, he gives them some type of words or advice or something to say, you need to go home. And he sends them off, and then he goes up into the hills to pray, and now it's nighttime. And then it continues with this. It says, meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. So you see the disciples get on their boat, they go onto this lake, and it says a storm basically pops up. And it's a rough storm for them, and they're struggling in it. And the spiritual side of this is this where it kind of shifts them from just a story to some spiritual implications, which is as they leave Jesus's presence and they go across the lake and are off on their own, they get themselves into some trouble, not of their fault, not of their doing, but just the way things are. And a storm strikes up that they were unaware of, and now they're fighting for their lives a little bit in a rough little storm. And if you look at your life that way, we all deal with this in our own lives. There's a lot of things that come into our lives, a lot of things that are put on us that aren't necessarily our fault, aren't things that we did, but it's just the world we live in, and this world gets chaotic, and those storms at times can start to feel overwhelming. Those storms at times can feel like, man, we're battling for our lives just to stay above the water. And that's where the disciples find themselves. And it goes on, it says, about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on the water. Then the disciples saw him walking on the water. They were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, it's a ghost. So at 3 in the morning, these guys are struggling to keep their boat intact in the middle of the storm. And then all of a sudden, they can see some figure walking alongside them. in the water. And their natural instinct is, in the midst of all this chaos and everything else, it just got worse. There's a ghost out there. And it says they kind of scream and they point out there's a ghost, and they start to freak out that way. And so Jesus realizes that, and it says, but Jesus spoke to them at once. So for them to hear him, he had to be fairly close. They're in the midst of a storm and all that. So you're talking he's within voice distance. So, 15, 20 feet or something like that. Somewhere close enough that they can hear him when he yells back when they say, it's a ghost. And he says to them, hey, don't be afraid. He said, take courage. I am here. So he says, hey guys, relax. It's me. Take courage. I am here. And then this is the interesting part. It says, then Peter called out to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. So Peter goes, Jesus, if that's really you, tell me to come out there with you. Just tell me to get out of the boat and come walk to you. And Jesus' response is this. He says, yes, come, Jesus said. So it says, Peter went over the side of the boat and he walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw how strong the winds were in the waves, he was terrified and he began to sink. And he said, save me, Lord, he shouted. All right. And so this gets very interesting. So Peter jumps over the side of the boat. Jesus says, come to him. He starts walking towards him. So Peter's walking on the water. And it says, as he's walking to him, it looks like it starts out well. He starts to look to side. And he starts to see the waves around him. He starts to see the chaotic mess that they were in before Jesus arrived. And he gets his eyes back on that instead of on Jesus. And it says at that point, he starts to sink. And then it ends this way as he starts to sink and he yells out to Jesus, save me. It says, Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. And he said, you have so little faith. Why did you doubt me? You have so little faith. Why did you doubt me? When they climb back into the boat, so Jesus grabs them, they climb back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. And so you get this picture that as Peter gets his eyes off of Jesus and starts looking at the chaos around him again, he starts to sink and he gets caught back up into those things. And then he has to beg Jesus, save me. So Jesus comes over, grabs him, walks him back to the boat. They get on, everything stops, everything gets calm. And at that point, they bow down and they worship. And so the spiritual lessons I just want to share with you is it's very easy in these times. It's very easy in this culture. It's very easy just in the day-to-day of this world, outside of even this coronavirus stuff, to get our eyes caught up in all the other garbage going on around us, to get caught up in all the other conflict and things like that are going on around us. And get our eyes off of our real purpose, to get our eyes off of Jesus and what we're actually here for, and to get our eyes off the kingdom of God. And usually what it is we get sidetracked by issues. We get sidetracked by the chaos happening around us, and it gets us to go, Jesus is over there, but I got to handle this stuff right now, and I got to be focused on this and stop focusing on him. And we start looking from side to side. And the more we do that, the more we start to sink, and the more we distance ourselves from Jesus, and the less calm things become. For instance, it's very easy right now in the mess that we're in to get caught up with the daily news. And I mean, our daily news right now, they have a daily counter up of those who have died. 24 hours a day. You turn on the news, you read any article, and everything's an updated list of how many people have died, how many people have been infected. And it's very easy for those to become the waves that you just start looking at and going, what am I supposed to do? And you stop forgetting about your relationship with Christ. You stop forgetting why you are here. And you start getting caught up thinking your entire life is about keeping the things you have in this world, including your own life. And then you forget the most important things, and that's the kingdom things. And so it's very easy to get manipulated, and that very easy for the media and things to do that for us who aren't interested in us staying focused on Jesus, but are interested in making us think this is what it's all about, the things of this world. For instance, if we really wanted to scare ourselves, it's very easy that you could do a death counter every single day that we live on this planet, because just in the United States alone, I shared this a couple of weeks ago when we got to meet last in church, just in the United States alone, you have 7,708 people die each day. Just like if we put a counter up on the TV every single day showing us another 7,708 people died today. And then they started going through, and 1,641 of those people died of cancer today. You better be scared to death of cancer. They died of cancer. 401 people died of a stroke today. You better make sure you're not going to die of a stroke today. 228 people died of diabetes today. Those are real numbers of an average day in the United States of America. And you can see how very easily that can make us panic, that can get our eyes off the real mission we are here, and that's to serve Jesus Christ, to be focused on him and do kingdom work. You could just take the flu, for instance, and I got these numbers from the CDC. And the flu, if you did the daily counters, what they could paranoid us with every single year is this: another 250,000 new people were infected with the flu just today. And that's been going on for day after day. Another 4,500 people were admitted to the hospital yesterday with the flu. And another 340 people died just yesterday from the flu. If they ran those numbers day in, day out, you can see how we can get preoccupied with the things of this world. That's not to say the coronavirus thing going on right now isn't real or anything. It's not a hoax or anything. It's a real disease. It's a real virus that's out there, and it is killing some people and all that. But in the daily routine of life, it's not really unusual. This is what we just deal with. We just usually don't look at it. But when people focus us on it, it's like the waves, and you start looking and going, I need to be more concerned about this stuff than I need to be concerned about my relationship with Christ and how I share him with the world around me. So we just need to make sure we get our priorities straight, okay? When you're focused on Jesus, here's the things you realize. Number one, this world is not our home, okay? We are supposed to be foreigners and strangers here. This is not what we're living for. As Christians, we understand our home is heaven. We understand our goal is to get to heaven. Our goal is not to get to 93 years old. Our goal is not to get to 84 years old. Our goal is not to have 6 kids. Those might be things we desire. Those might be things we hope we get to do. But ultimately, those are not our goal. Our goal should be, as followers of Jesus Christ, is to be kingdom workers, to do the work that God has set before us, whether we're in good times or bad times, or there's waves around us or not, to keep our eyes on Jesus, keep our eyes on his kingdom, and do his work. And here's the thing that we learned from this story here with Peter. If we would do that, the rest of the stuff would not panic us. The rest of the stuff would not stress us out, because we had realized this is temporal stuff, okay? When we keep our eyes on the ball, when we keep our eyes on Jesus, when we keep our eyes on the kingdom work, what we start to realize is we're at a lot more peace. And the reason for that is we know the stuff we're doing has eternal meaning, not just temporal meaning. Because when all you're doing is temporal stuff, you feel like you're losing stuff all the time. And the reason for that is because we live in a temporal world that is constantly decaying, that is constantly dying. So if you're trying to hold on to that tightly, you're always going to feel like you're losing it. All right? So the lesson to be learned from this experience of Peter walking on the water with Jesus is not that he sank, it's that he got his eyes off the right goal. All right. So for the next couple weeks, or for the next, not a couple weeks, let's just give you 1 week at a time, because I'm hoping we get to meet again starting soon. But for the next week, here's some things to think about. How do you keep your mind on the kingdom while you're stuck at home, or while we have all the chaos happening around us? A couple of little simple things. If you think of someone from the church or something like that, or someone that you're just is on your mind, you know what? Pick up the phone or pick up a text and text them. Just contact them and say, hey, how you doing? And just have a conversation. That's doing kingdom. We're just interacting with each other, encouraging each other, building each other as a church. Even though we can't meet together physically, we can still do that through the technologies that we have today in this world. So just give someone a call if they're on your heart. Just strike up a conversation, because everyone right now is desperate just for human interaction. All right. That's one thing. 2, make sure in these times you don't neglect, and you would think a lot of times we have all this extra time, I'm going to spend more time building my relationship with Christ. Unfortunately, it's not usually how it works. Usually we just veg and we get it caught up just wasting our time doing meaningless little things, all right? So this would be a great time again. Some of those things that you've never had time to refocus on your relationship with Christ, always talk about this. We always think we're going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to get better at it tomorrow. I'm going to focus on a relationship more tomorrow. Well, guess what? Today can be your tomorrow. Today is the great time for you to start taking a little extra time, spending in your scriptures, reading your scriptures, and actually digging into it a little bit more than just reading it. You got some time, okay? Spend a little extra time in prayer. Hopefully you're already doing that some, just because of the situation is kind of making you want to do that, and you have a lot more to pray for. But in general, spend a little bit more time in prayer and developing that relationship with God. There are great things that can happen in the midst of chaos. The other thing you can do is, one, if you haven't watched the video, Let No One Fall at the church yet, go and watch that video. It's talking about a program or a short-term ministry we're going to be putting into place, knowing the financial hard times that are coming for people in our church, and we need you to start praying about your role in that. And if that's something that you can play a role in, if you're financially stable, that you can help others in the church then to make sure that no one in our house loses or no one in our church loses their house or their living space or apartment or something like that, and we can work together as a church family to make sure everyone needs are met. So there are some things there to focus on. There's some things there to be focused on during the next week as you just kind of go through whatever your routine is going to look like, which is different for all of us right now. But remember, your number one goal is to be the light of the world, to stay kingdom focused, to continue to keep your eyes on Jesus and build your relationship with him. And as long as you do that, no matter what chaos and waves are around you, you will find more peace, you'll find more strength, you'll find more calm in your life, because Jesus will grant that to you because you know you're doing his eternal work and that you know your home and eternity in his kingdom is secured. So, hey, have a great Lord's Day. Take some time to focus on him, even though we're not there together to just worship together. Take some time to do it on your own. So God bless you. Have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you in the flesh soon. Have a great one.